Ah, those sweet, sweet sounds of 28 Days Later. If you've watched the movie we're talking about today, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, then you know that we go into the credits with those very sounds. And you know what that means for part 3. Coming up when, we don't know. But the good news is that today, March 31st, 28 years later, The Bone Temple Part 2 in this sequel trilogy has dropped on Netflix, and Riley and I have gotten together to talk about it in this special Cinema Hounds Horror Hounds crossover episode. So welcome. We are the Lorehounds, your guides to zombie medicine and apocalyptic showmanship. I'm Elysia, and I'm here again with Riley, who joined us for the last 2 episodes Jean and I did talking about this series. Welcome back, Riley. So I've been following, as always, what you've been up to on your YouTube channel. You've been a busy bee. Do you want to share what some of your recent videos that you've been covering there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I recently did a video, just a little review of Anaconda, which
Right.
was was yeah, a very interesting movie to say the least. One of my biggest videos recently was a review on Borderlands 4. So
Okay, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I've been trying to release like a video every week.
Well, we're glad that you can take time away from that to come back and we can get back into 28 years later. This is, of course, our second public, third total 28 worlds. What did we decide to call this universe?
Oh,
The
ah,
28s.
the 28s. I,
Yeah,
I I feel like the 28 sounds right.
the 28 zombie verse. But yeah, for anyone who hasn't, I recommend checking out our 28 years later episode, which I will link directly in the show notes. And there's also an additional episode before that covering 28 days and weeks together. For both of those, it was the 3 of us, you, me, and Jean. Unfortunately, Jean couldn't join today
Mhm.
because for personal reasons. But he did check in and shared his thoughts. So we'll listen to what he had to say in just a minute. We are going to, as usual, start spoiler free. There will be a spoiler warning before the break. However, for this spoiler free part, we are considering the first movie 28 years later fair game. So if you don't want any spoilers at all, then I recommend going back to that episode where we have a spoiler free intro. But here, yeah, we're going to assume that you've already seen it or you don't mind it being spoiled. And then after a spoiler warning, we will be getting into a breakdown of the movie, setup by setup, and talk about all the things and why Ralph Fiennes deserves an Oscar. I'm never going to shut up about this.
Absolutely.
So, okay, just to set this up, this film, the second film in the 28 years later trilogy, is The Bone Temple. Fear is the new faith. Dr. Kelson finds himself in a shocking new relationship with consequences that could change the world as they know it. And Spike's encounter with Jimmy Crystal becomes a nightmare he can't escape. Bum, bum, bum. This was an hour and 49 minutes long, so 6 minutes shorter than part 1. The stars are, we have Alfie Williams back as young Spike, Jack O'Connell back as Jimmy from the, we'll talk about whether this redeemed that post-credit. Aaron Kellyman as another one of the Jimmys, Ralph Fiennes for his should-be Oscar-winning role. And I'm not sure, do we say it's Chai or Chi Lewis Perry? But he plays Samson.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not sure on the pronunciation either.
So, Riley, what is your spoiler-free hot take? You were questioning the last scene of the prior film? You and many, many other people. Did the way they use the Jimmies in this film redeem that for you?
I think overall, like on the whole, as a whole piece, yes. I think as far as like analyzing the first 28 years later as like its own movie, kind of still feels like tonally like really jarring. But I think that it made sense like logically in terms of how it contrasted with the overall narrative, and that was the intention. And I think this one, it doesn't really go back into that really much of that, like kind of what happened at the end of 28 years later was kind of weird. Just
I
it
like
was like,
weird. Yeah.
yeah, I like weird too, but it was like a tonal, kind of like a tonal, like I that was jarring.
Hmm.
But I can't. It makes sense with like the worldview of the Jimmies compared to that of our protagonists, and yeah. So I think it works like as a whole. It was just jarring at the end of the first movie.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I liked listened again to our 28 years later episode, and I've called it in several other episodes one of my favorite films of all time now. And I liked the sort of cyclical nature of this boy who's trapped in childhood, and then here in this film we see the consequences of yeah,
Yeah.
whatever the fallout of that, that first film, seeing his father lead the dead as a priest, and
Yeah.
what that did to his young psyche, combined with Teletubbies, because he liked Teletubbies or Teletubbies as he misremembers now.
Yeah. That's a nice touch too, just in terms of just, I guess, how he kind of doesn't, doesn't remember as far as like the actual history of anything. It's just kind of based on what kind of benefits him.
Yeah, he's constructed his own sort of mythology, history.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. What did you think of the film overall, though? Spoiler free.
Overall, I thought it was very good. I it's very different. It's, well, not very, but it's pretty different from the first 28 years later. Um, I would say I still liked part one a little more than part two,
Hmm.
or a little bit more than the Bone Temple, just because it might, maybe it was because the series had been away for so long, or maybe it was just the narrative felt a little bigger in scope, but bigger doesn't always have to necessarily mean better. So this one was much more personal, if that makes any sense,
Hmm.
uh in terms of the character relationships and kind of the harrowing journey that our hero goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, I also, I mean, I called yeah, we're going to refer to it as part one and part two, even though this is not Dune. Um,
Yeah.
but I called part one of my all time favorites, and this is not one of my all time favorites, but I still gave it 5 stars. It's like
Yeah.
on a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate the first 28 years later at an 11, like a
Yeah.
game changer. And this one I gave, 5 stars to a 10. For me, it, did perfectly what it wanted to do. I guess the last film pushed further, broke some things, in
Yeah.
ways that I found really interesting. And I think that's also why people like this film better, apparently,
Hmm.
overall. So on Rotten Tomatoes, this film got 92% from critics and 88% from audiences, versus part one got 88 from critics and 63 from audiences. So I think it
Huh.
was that jarring ending for a lot of people. And then, yeah, on Letterboxd, this film, The Bone Temple, got 3.9 out of 5, versus the first one got 3.4 out of 5.
Yeah, that's interesting because while I the ending was kind of like in the first one was jarring, that was only like, I don't know, 2 minutes of, but the rest of
Right.
the films just is absolutely like makes sense and absolutely just wrecks. So I'm kind of surprised to hear that actually.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting. A lot of people say that this film is more violent than the first film, but Nia DaCosta, the director of this film, she, she keeps pointing out that actually you saw more visceral gore in the first one. This one just feels worse, I think, because it's human on human violence, and I'll say there's a content warning for torture.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, that's kind of how it definitely feels that way, but yeah, kind of what the director said. It makes the first movie just lots and lots of zombie violence.
Lots of zombie violence, it's true.
Yes.
And here it's there's actually not that much zombie stuff other than Samson.
Yeah.
It's mostly humans being awful, but we'll get to that. Shall we check in and hear what Jean thought of this one?
Absolutely.
Here we go.
Riley, Elysia, so sorry that I couldn't join you on this episode of sure to be riveting and absolutely amazing conversation around 28 years later, the Bone Temple. I can't wait to hear what you guys thought of it, how you guys break it down. I'm sure it's going to be a fun pod. I just want to say that really quickly, I want to give Nia DaCosta, the director, all of the movies to make. I'm such a fan of hers, and I think she did an absolutely amazing job with this film. And it's the thing that I will say is that it's so very different from previous installments because from the very beginning, I was just totally gripped with anticipation, fear, all the things that you would expect to be in a zombie apocalypse. I felt the tension that each character faced from the onset. This was non-stop. It was non-stop drama, non-stop looking over your shoulder. And I just really think that it is a testament to her filmmaking and also the direction of the characters and how well acted they were in this movie to make me feel this way. I absolutely think that future zombie movies can take a little bit of a note from this one because how I feel is that you there's a sense of dread over this entire film from beginning to end. And
good way to put it.
Yeah, that's how it should be. So watching it, I just felt overwhelmed for these characters and really wanted the best for them, knowing that the best was probably not going to happen. So kudos again to the entire crew for bringing that emotion out of me. As far as the film, visually, it's stunning. I think some of the chase scenes and the fight scenes and the evisceration scenes are just, epic in scale. And when I say epic in scale, I don't mean in the bombastic type of way. I just mean that they were epically done to show the gore and how, visceral that feeling was of seeing somebody literally getting, torn apart. Shouldn't be an easy thing to view. And I think that was really borne out in the film. That's what I'm going to leave you guys with. I want to hear what you guys thought of everything. Who are your favorite characters? I mean, my favorite character is Alpha. So take that for what it is. And yeah, I look forward to revisiting this world. Look forward to seeing more from Nia in this world and certainly outside of it. And that's where I'm going to leave it. So thank you guys for giving me this opportunity just to share my brief thoughts on the film. Have a great pod. I'll talk to you both later, and I can't wait to listen. Peace.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I know he's a big Nia DaCosta fan, and I think this is possibly, I don't know, maybe my favorite Nia DaCosta film to date. Of course, maybe I'm biased.
It's one of mine. I mean, the other one would be the name that I cannot say, just because I get scared if there's like a reflection. Um,
Oh, yeah. Don't say it 3 times, you mean.
yeah, I mean, I won't even say it one time. I'm just like I'm very superstitious.
Fair, fair. Yeah, the gentleman with the sweet stuff.
In Chicago, yeah.
Uh, good point. Good point. Yeah, so I guess for me, I really love this one, but it did feel different from the other, as we said, and it makes sense because we have a different director instead of Danny Boyle. We
Mhm.
have Nia DaCosta. It's still written by Alex Garland. They're all written by Alex Garland, so there's that through line. But this one, yeah, it was filmed back to back with the first one, and Danny Boyle's like, I can't do both back to back like that.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, he brought in Nia DaCosta, and I think that's great. She's brought a fresh perspective to it, and she's also brought some of her favorite collaborators. So that instead of that Young Father score that I loved from the last one, or the John Murphy score from the original, instead we get a score from Hildur Gudnadottir, who is an Oscar-winning composer. Yeah, she also did Hedda, for example, and she just did The Bride, which Lisa and I just released an episode about for subscribers. Um, and yeah, but it's a different energy because it feels like the score feels more stately. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Needle drops aside, we'll get to the needle drop.
Oh,
But
there's some good needle drops.
yeah, yeah, that was a highlight musically for me. And then also, yeah, she brought Sean Bobbitt, who's a collaborator with her for cinematography, instead of Anthony Dodd Mantle, who did Days and Years. It was edited by a different person, by Jake Roberts, who also edited, for example, Alien Romulus and other Alex Garland films, rather than John Harris, who did Years and is going to be doing Clayface next. And I really liked John Harris pushing the envelope with the editing, so I hope he does that in Clayface as well.
Hmm.
When did you see this when it released? January 13th here in Europe, 16th I think in the US. Did you get to see it shortly after it came out in the theater?
Yeah, I saw it within the first week. I usually, my friend and I kind of do like a movie day usually every Tuesday. So we usually go to the theater on a Tuesday. So that's the two, and that's so it's usually like the Tuesday after something new comes out usually. So that's what kind of happened with my when I saw the Bone Temple. How about you?
Yeah, I saw it opening weekend, and it was noticeably a different theatrical experience versus the first one. Like the first one I saw in Dolby, and it wasn't even available the second one in Dolby here.
Hmm.
It just seems like it flew much more under the radar, this second one.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just because it was January, or I mean, I'm just speculating, so it's kind of hard to
Yeah. Well, that
say.
is the question. And I think maybe because they released it so fast, I'm
Yeah.
hoping it'll get more traction now so it was released on video on demand on February 17th. And now the day that this episode that you're listening to now is released is the day that it's also released on Netflix. So you can now watch 28 Years and now 28 Years of Bone Temple on Netflix. So hopefully that will get more attention on it. The third part is greenlit by Sony/Columbia. And the last update was from Killian Murphy, who, spoiler, we've already talked about it before. He will play a major part in the third one. Um, he said in early March that the story is in process. So, yeah, I do know the people are worried though, because this Bone Temple, it cost about 63 million, and it barely broke even on that in the box office
Yeah.
versus 28 Years, which like tripled its investment. And you could say it's like the weird ending, but I don't think that's it. I think that a lot of people just genuinely were not aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it definitely the Bone Temple just, as you said, just kind of went unnoticed by a lot of people, just because either it was January or it just wasn't promoted, or like people were still focusing on last year's movies, or I yeah, it was kind of. yeah, it was kind of sad, I guess, that it was kind of ignored, at least from you know from a lot of audiences.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently, Netflix is interested in buying this off of Sony, but Danny Boyle rightfully wants theatrical, but it feels like, yeah, Sony just didn't invest in the theatrical promotion this time.
Yeah,
And I hope it's not because it's not it wasn't Danny Boyle directing.
yeah,
I I do yeah, I think it's great that for this sort of bridge movie that Nia DaCosta brought a new energy. Ray Fiennes said that Danny Boyle's direction in the first film was instinctive and fast paced with a clear vision of desired moments. And he says Nia DaCosta's approach is much more deliberate and meticulous
mm,
and with a lot of focus on close-up shots, so that's like focusing on the subtle aspects of an actor's performance. And I think, yeah, you feel that this is a
yeah.
much more intimate film, maybe.
I'd say yes, just because you don't really think too much about the wider world like you do in the first 28 part one, I should say. Whereas in this one, it's about Spike, it's about the Jimmies, and it's about uh, Ray Fiennes and his new buddy, his new zombie
Yeah. The
buddy.
ultimate bromance.
Yes, it's getting high.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I'm definitely going to gush more about Ray Fiennes as Kelson, but I think the entire cast was incredible. I think especially again Chai Lewis Perry, who plays Samson. That's a tough role to get recognition for because he obviously doesn't really speak. um, and it's also it was great. One of my favorite scenes. I won't spoil it, but just no, maybe I shouldn't even say that. I'll just say one of my favorite scenes overall. Definitely also involves Jack O'Connell, who is just becoming a legendary villain.
Yeah, yeah. Between this and Sinners,
Yeah, but I was thinking like I am more scared of Jimmy than I am of Remmick from Sinners.
yeah, yeah. I can
Like,
see that. I feel like Remick, he's obviously bad because he's a vampire, but it's
mhm.
like you can kind of somewhat see, but it's still bad. Whereas as lead Jimmy, he's kind of I don't know. He's definitely more evil, if that makes any sense. Which is weird to say that about someone who compared to a vampire.
Yeah, but Remick, like I bought into his whole shtick about like vampire communism.
Yeah,
I think he
yeah,
believes it at least.
yeah, yeah,
And even if it's for selfish reasons, but Jimmy is just pure selfishness.
yeah. For Jimmy, it's all about him. Whereas, as you kind of alluded to with Remick, it was he believes in what he says and he wants to share it with others, as he said.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, Nia DaCosta, she says that the theme of the first film in the trilogy was about the nature of family. Like, okay, that makes sense. And then she says the Bone Temple is about the nature of evil. Like, okay, there we go. Um, and she says that the third film will be about the nature of redemption. And apparently it's a film about radical forgiveness. So I am very interested in that, and I'm wondering who's getting forgiven, but we won't get into that spoilers. But yeah, I'll just say this is still an absolutely beautiful film. Just, yeah, I think Jean was talking about that with just all of the gorgeous shots of the woods and the countryside, and especially the Bone Temple and the way they played with light in the Bone
Mhm.
Temple, particularly in one scene. Did you have any more spoiler-free thoughts, or to whom would you recommend 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple?
So I'll just first add on to the any for the photography, cinematography. Anytime you have like vibrant, woodsy, kind of green colors, it just always kind of pops. And
Mm-hmm.
so it always just looks good on a theater screen. And as far as who I would like to recommend this to, I'd say one, if you liked the first 28 years lady, which the first 28 years later, you should I don't know why you haven't watched this yet, but if you haven't, get on that, please. And if you haven't watched the first 28 years later and you're kind of, you need like zombie films or you're interested in some horror kind of, but with like a lot of thought put into it, this is probably up your alley.
Yeah, horror with emotional depth
Yes.
about the nature of humanity in the end. At the end of the day, yeah.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I will second that recommendation, and we'll take a quick pause here. And when we come back, there will be the full spoiler warning, and we will get into the breakdown. Be right back. Okay, we are back, and this is your last chance. Escape stage left if you don't want spoilers for 28 years later, The Bone Temple, because we are going to begin now. And I would like to shout out a thanks to Wikipedia for helping me speed up the outline writing with the plot summaries. So let's start with the opening setup. There's an initiation where somebody's losing a finger. After being rescued by the Fingers, a gang of fighters led by the zealous Satan worshiper Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, Spike is forced to kill Jimmy Shite in a death match as an initiation. Sir Jimmy renames the young boy Jimmy to match the other Fingers, who include the more empathetic Jimmy Inc. and the sadistic Jemima. So, what are your thoughts on this opening scene?
um, it kind of sets the tone for the movie, as far as you see kind of the brutal violence in terms of the human on human violence rather than the zombie violence. It kind of shows how sadistic the Jimmies are, like how it's like they pressure, they, in order for Spike to kind of save his own life, he has to like kill someone. And it's bizarre just because he's a kid
Mm-hmm.
comparatively speaking. I mean, a lot of them all look kind of kids, but like he's like, I I don't remember what his age was, but he was noticeably younger and smaller, and so it's like that wasn't even a fair fight to begin with. But yeah, it just kind of sets up the power dynamic, and it sets up just uh some of the more gruesome and more, you know human on human violence that you see throughout the film.
Yeah. Yeah, we get the introduction to Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, this personality of this overlord, literally sitting in this lifeguard's chair above the rest of them down in a drained pool.
Mhm.
And it seems, do you think, like, I don't know, I was wondering if he felt special that he was the only one of his friends who survived as a kid,
Um,
if that makes him feel like the chosen son, or because his father was the priest. Or the
I think
sorry, not of the vicar.
I think a combination of those things. I mean, like if you survive something like that where the other kids don't, you're gonna feel special. And then when your dad kind of goes out on that kind of speech like that, it's probably gonna leave an impact on you. So
Mhm.
I think yeah, he felt special because of those two things.
Yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, I think it's interesting. There seems to be a lot of conflict in his head. Like later on, we hear him say to Kelson, "If only his mom and sister had hidden in the church." But then it's like, well, his father was the one who was leading the charge. But would he have protected? I don't know. There's all these questions that are in my head. It must also have been in Jimmy's head for the past 28 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of his look?
Jimmy?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Jimmy Crystal.
oh, Jimmy, that Jimmy,
Yeah, the
the
Jimmy.
the Jimothy.
Not to be confused with Jimmy, who's a different Jimmy.
Yeah, correct. There's yes. My apologies for those listening. um, uh, I thought he looked, they look silly, in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
their hairdo, their outfits, they call each other Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of highlights kind of this idea that this kid didn't grow up
Mm-hmm.
and like didn't like actually mature, but instead was like raised in this brutal and violent world, and that's kind of what he embodies and became. And so there's the contrast between like how wicked he is and how silly he looks. It kind of just uh it kind of it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget. Did you watch the Alien show, the new Alien Earth show?
I did.
Okay, yeah. So you know how they were playing in that show on the darker side of Peter Pan. And it
Hmm.
feels like that's what's at play here too. Like he is a dark Peter Pan, a
Yeah.
Satanist Peter Pan, who wants to be the overlord but doesn't want to. He's in an adult body, but he's clearly not even taking care of his teeth. He's modeled himself after a Jimmy Seville. We talked about it in the last episode, but he was a children's television host who was, after his death, exposed to have been a rampant pedophile for many years.
Hmm.
But Jimmy wouldn't know that because the apocalypse happened in that world before that was exposed. So I wonder what he would think if he did know.
Uh,
I don't know.
I'm
Um,
thinking. I
yeah,
think he might be indifferent. Maybe. Mm. I think he would if he knew that he would use it to it. Maybe he'd use something like that to his advantage.
yeah, yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to wonder, was he just a sadist, or was he also thankfully there's no sexual violence in this film,
Yeah.
but
Thankfully.
you could imagine, I don't know. He could just be a virgin. He doesn't even know about sex. I don't
Yeah.
know. Um
Maybe it's that innocence too.
yeah, cuz he's modeled himself also after the Teletubbies,
Yes.
but also just with a tiara to show that he's the leader, I suppose. I mean, to be honest, if it were the apocalypse, I would wear a tiara all the time as well.
Yeah. I I've played so many video games based in the apocalypse, so I'm just thinking about how I dress in those, and a lot of times it would be like the tiara.
Yeah, of course. Although the tracksuits look comfortable. So at one point we talked about the Teletubbies thing, that he's misremembering things, but he also at one point calls himself Roberto Calamari. Um, Maybe he is thinking of Roberto Calavari, who's a tracksuit designer.
I think that would make sense.
Can I ask you, who do you think? Because I would say Spike was the lead in the first movie. Do you think Spike is still the lead in this movie, or if not, who?
It's interesting to say. I'd say maybe Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
Maybe, yeah.
maybe. I mean, like we obviously don't really empathize with Jimmy too much.
No,
But you
hopefully.
know, I'd say maybe part of me says Jimmy just because he drives so much of like the plot and the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, that's an interesting question actually.
Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting that, like, in the last film, Spike, it was almost about him acting older than he was. Like, it starts with, his dad taking him out for the hunting ritual too young. And then, him taking his mother upon himself as if he were the parent, and she's literally calling him dad. And now it's about him finding himself in this situation where he is a helpless kid.
Yeah.
And like the only reason he survived this fight is because he just got lucky and hit Jimmy Shite in the femoral artery in the leg, where you just bleed out if it's not taken care of.
No, that makes. Yeah, no, I agree.
What was okay? So we had 7 fingers, and someone pointed out online that there were 7 kids in the part 1 intro. So I wonder if that's why he had 7 fingers. But Jimmy Inc., otherwise we learn later known as Kelly, Jimmy Shite, who's the one that Spike killed, Jimmy Fox, Jimmy Jones, who's the other female other than Jemima, who's the pixie sadist one, and Jimmy Snake, who was the bestie of the Jimmy that Spike killed. Did you have any favorites in this group of the Jimmys?
I liked Jimmy Jones, I guess. I mean, maybe not like the name, but
yeah, is that a Jim Jones reference?
It feels like it. I mean, like one of them feels like it. One of the references feels like a Jamie Foxx reference. Maybe.
I mean, Jamie Foxx is a much cuddlier character than cult leader Jim Jones.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that Jimmy Jones kind of makes sense just because she's not as terrible comparatively.
Yeah. True. less sadist than most of the rest.
Yes. She has ideological questions.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like who I'd most want to hang out with, obviously Jimmy Inc., the one played by Aaron Kellyman. As far as who I find the most interesting, I would say Jemima, the pixie sadist. It was she does the dipsy dance.
Oh, wait, I meant Jimmy Inc. I mean, I confused you.
Okay.
There's so many Jimmys. They're all named Jimmy.
Yeah, it is confusing. I noticed Spike didn't get. Did they ever? I don't know if they gave him a Jimmy. Like they called him Jimmy, but did he have like a Jimmy blank name? I couldn't find it. If he did,
I don't.
I've watched it twice.
I don't think he did. Yeah, I don't think he did.
Yeah, and he also didn't get the branding of the upside down cross on his forehead, like Jimmy Inc. has, for example.
Yeah, maybe he hasn't been properly initiated. I don't. Maybe there's a, maybe there's some sort of initiation we didn't see, or that they do, but they didn't get to for reasons of plot progression.
Right.
So maybe he was in, but not all the way in. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, makes sense. What did you think of the masks? I guess they had these tie-on masks that were made from, I suppose, more tracksuits, but like with shoelaces using them. Yeah, they were so weird, and it made it so creepy to me that they were so weird.
Yeah, kind of like do-it-yourself Slipknot masks. Yeah, no, they kind of added to the creepy factor, definitely.
And then, yeah, the like sort of, I don't know, a Teletubby-ness is, this actually comes from Jimmy Savile, the child molester, who would say on his show, "How's about that?" So that's probably where "How's that" came from, where they're kind of, "How's that?" Yeah. I don't know. I guess the final point I want to make here is that I find it interesting that Spike basically ends up with the fingers because he is a good boy who wanted, he was blaming his dad last. If Sean were here, I would want to ask what if he thinks Jamie looks so bad now after you meet the Jimmys. But Spike was basically like, I can't stand dad's flattery and bullshit and cheating on mom. And so he runs away from home, and this is what he finds. So it's
Right.
actually his innocence that drove him into the arms of the devil.
Yeah. In his defense, though, and Spike's defense, though, it's, bad behavior's not a competition. I mean, it is
No.
comparatively,
Yeah.
like he did comparatively end up into a worse situation, but that doesn't take away the fact that his dad is kind of a dick.
Yeah. I'm a little more forgiving of his dad. His dad did cheat on his mom, and that sucks. And
Yeah.
his dad did take him off the island too young. So his dad's not a perfect
No.
dad for sure. But I definitely I don't think he's a bad dad either, really. I do think he really loved Jim. I was so surprised that we didn't hear anything about him or the town or anything in this. This was really like an interlude in the
Yeah.
trilogy.
Yeah. It was very focused on basically kind of three core characters and those that surround them,
Yeah.
and like in the immediate, and like how they eventually all interact with each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was much more it wasn't as narratively, the scope wasn't as big as the first movie. It was much more intimate.
Yeah. I do wonder if Spike's ever had friends his own age, because I guess we didn't see any the first time. But it's interesting. So when they enter that pool area, they passed a sign called "No children past this point," and I wonder if that's just saying Spike is his childhood's over. As soon as he meets a Jimmy's, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the innocence is gone.
But I actually, yeah, I think if there are three core characters, I don't necessarily think Spike is one of them. I think it's Jimmy, and I think it's these other two. Let's get into the Bone Temple
Yeah.
bromance. Dr. Ian Kelson continues to build up the Bone Temple, an ossuary for those killed in the rage virus epidemic, while the Alpha infected, Samson, repeatedly visits him. Kelson deduces that Samson is being addicted to the morphine from his blowgun, deliberately allowing himself to be drugged. Samson no longer attacks Kelson, and the two develop a friendship as his humanity begins to resurface. Running low on sedatives, Kelson prepares to euthanize Samson, but is overjoyed when Samson speaks the word moon, suggesting that the rage virus may be treatable. I was so mad at Kelson that he was almost about to kill him.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of mad for similar reasons, just because you had been, you guys had been getting high together. You guys have been, you were buddies. And another movie, this would be like there'd be like a little comedy kind of thing, but like it's like, you can't betray Samson like that.
I know.
I mean, I get like the logic of what he was saying, but it's also like, no.
But it's also he tested Samsung kind of where he passes out at one point and then he wakes up relieved that Samson hasn't killed him and he's like, oh, so he's actually,
Yeah.
resurfacing, becoming more human. And then he was gonna fail that test. Like, don't kill your buddy is just the basic test.
Yeah.
uh, um it was interesting. Okay, so we heard Kelson make a reference to Samsung at the beginning of their getting to know you, where Samson still has those arrows in him from Spike from their interaction at the end of the last movie, and so Kelson pulls the arrows out and treats them, and he refers to Androcles and the lion. Are you familiar with this myth?
I am not, even though I should be.
Um, well, it's
given my heritage.
yeah, right, Greek. Yeah, well, I have a Greek name, but no Greek heritage. But yeah, so basically, it's the one about the thorn in the lion's paw, where this what is it, a mouse or something, helps the lion remove the thorn from his paw, and then later, when the lion is supposed to attack the mouse, the lion says no because the mouse helped me. So it's about showing compassion to someone who could be dangerous, and that you get paid back with kindness in return. So otherwise known as Hope Punk.
It's a big theme this year.
Yeah, that's a big theme with me. I'm clinging to the hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, so we see this that he is that test that we were talking about. I like the NHS joke. It made me laugh. But he's like, he says, what are you going to pay me? Just kidding, I'm NHS, which is free healthcare.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice?
It would be very nice.
But yeah, so the ossuary looked incredible. I liked getting to spend more time there. Apparently, it was made from 5,000 cast skulls and 150 bones, making all those towers. Very cinematic. And this is, of course, where we get we get Samson. By the way, we get a flashback we'll talk about in another section in a moment, where Samson remembers being human. And I'm like, wow, he looks smaller, like,
Yeah.
and it turns out he's actually, because the rage virus is supposed to like puff you up in the muscles. He was wearing a full body prosthetic suit. So it's not just the penis, but the full suit, the full body is prosthetics.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
As far as practical effects go, that's fantastic.
It looks pretty real.
Yeah, if you hadn't told me that, I would have just assumed that man is a big dude.
Yeah. Apparently, it took 7 artists 6 to 8 hours to apply the suit, and each one could only be used once. And they had to do it more than 25 times while filming the 2 films.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
My attention span would not allow that.
I mean, that's always the impressive thing about, these actors who can do the prosthetic work, because then it takes hours to take off too. So
Yeah.
you're spending most of your day just waiting to be encased in this, latex or whatever. Silicone, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he dances in it. Apparently, the scene where Dr. Kelson and Samson dance to Rio from Duran Duran was not part of the original script, but they improvised it while filming, and that's like one of my favorite moments.
I always love a good pivot, and like, because I didn't know that beforehand. I always love it when like filmmakers can pivot like that, and they kind of get inspired by an idea and do something different than what was initially planned. So good on them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna save the Iron Maiden discussion for the end, where it belongs. But
Absolutely.
of the other needle drops, did you have any favorites?
I guess it's hard to argue against everything in its right place, just because I do enjoy Kid A, the album as a whole from Radiohead. So that one's probably my go-to.
Yeah. I do. I love that one. I am a fan of Radiohead. I am especially a fan of Duran Duran. So I was excited they used 3 Duran Duran songs. Girls on Film, Ordinary Worlds, definitely my favorite, and Rio, as we already talked about. I thought it was cool how they did this thing where the song would be both diegetic, so like played within that world because Kelson had his wind up record player, but also part of like the soundtrack, and it would kind of fade back and forth where like maybe Kelson would just be singing the song and then it blasts out over the film and then goes. I thought that was some really cool sound mixing there.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was interjected kind of awkwardly, like whenever I listen or watch like something like the Mario movie or something and they put in like a song, it kind of doesn't really feel natural to the movie. Like, even though that's a kids movie, totally different genre, but it doesn't like feel right. And in this case, everything was placed in such an order and visually and in audio form that it just it it felt connected to the movie more so than a lot of other kind of movies that do try to do something similar.
Yeah. It was interesting though, because it would, be the music would be in scene or out of scene. It kind of called attention to itself in that way, but it
Yeah,
somehow that sucked me in even more.
yeah,
Okay, so let's put a plug in our romance for now, and let's check back in on some farmers that are getting fingered. So we- this is really not funny, even if I
it's
phrase
not
it
it's
that
not funny, but
way.
I have to respect good wordplay on that.
Thank you. Thank you. The Fingers raid a farm inhabited by survivors, including Tom and his pregnant partner, Kathy. Sir Jimmy sends Jimmy Inc. to scout the surrounding area where she catches sight of the Bone Temple, Samson, and Kelson, whose skin is covered in a red iodine solution, which he wears to protect himself from the virus. In a barn, Kathy hides as Sir Jimmy orders the Fingers to skin the captured survivors alive as a sacrifice to Old Nick, claiming that Satan is his father and speaks to him. Spike goes outside, sickened. Jimmy Inc. Yeah, I mean, I would be Spike, by the way, in that situation. Jimmy Inc., who has returned and is growing disillusioned with Sir Jimmy, takes pity on him. Sir Jimmy offers Tom a place in the gang if he can win a death match against a Finger, but Tom is quickly outmatched by his chosen opponent, Jemima. Kathy breaks her cover to kill Jemima, and Tom sets the barn on fire with a gas tank, killing Jimmy and burning several others before being killed himself. So Jimmy sends Spike to capture Kathy. Spike, traumatized, begs her to take him with her instead. Kathy incapacitates him and escapes. With the gang's numbers and morale low, Sir Jimmy threatens to kill Spike for his failure to capture Kathy, but Ink suggests that they visit Kelson, whom she assumes is Old Nick, having mistaken the iodine solution for reddened skin and seen his interactions with the quote unquote demon Samson, and let Old Nick decide Spike's fate. So, also R.I.P. Jono, who got left behind with the
Yeah.
infected in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, by the way, the one who was fought and overwhelmed, is apparently Andy Serkis's son.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, Louis Ashburn Circus. So I didn't realize that. Yeah, so this is this is where the Procula rating this scene is where it goes off the charts, I suppose.
It's probably the most gruesome scene in the film, I'd argue.
It's probably one of the most gruesome scenes of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're squeamish around torture, like even if you're not squeamish around torture,
Yeah.
it is I was like kind of like grabbing my knees or like the side of my chair and like kind of like trying to squirm inside of the chair at
I
that
mean,
part.
it starts like it's already making me squirm when he's making Jemima do the dipsy dance, not letting her stop. Even though she seems to be can she's like used to it, I suppose. But that's just such an act of control.
Yeah.
And then it escalates to the point where this whole idea of offering charity means torturing people. And the chosen charity in this, like we saw someone in the last movie who was hung upside down with Jimmy carved in his chest. So that must have been a type of charity. But seems worse. It's removing the shirt where they literally just skin the torso of the person and you just see that skin drop on the ground. And oh my God,
Yeah,
it's a lot.
it is. It's gonna stick with me for a while.
I don't know. Why do you think he calls it charity, offering charity?
I'm guessing maybe to Old Nick.
Yeah.
Or kind of like a sacrifice
I see.
in a way.
So the charity is not to the people who are receiving the charity, or yeah, as they put it.
Yeah, the charities for the one, the
Mm-hmm.
devil, or Satan, or terminology.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, I like. There was some great. It was a tough scene to watch because of all this we're saying, but there is some really cool shots. For example, there's one point where they're exiting the farmhouse, and there's this shot just showing them from the distance and emphasizing the landscape around it, and just kind of, I don't know, showing how they are just like they are so small in this landscape, despite what Jimmy wants to think.
Yeah. He wants to think that he's larger than life, but he's just kind of, there's probably a lot of like little messed up stories that are happening on in the UK and Zombie land.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's like in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of like, he's not that important, but he's kind of in that his own narrative and in his own world he is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also, I mean, I don't want to say enjoyed or liked, but I was invested in the commentary about the man choosing the woman he thinks looks weak to fight. Like, this is someone who probably thinks he's like, I'm a feminist until it's like time to fight for your life. I'll kill the woman, you know? But then, of course, I mean, I guess at least Spike was outside. I wonder if he would go after
Yeah.
the kid.
Part of me thinks he might have, maybe. I
But
think he
then,
would have. Part of
yeah,
me,
I,
just
I
because he's desperate.
I think part of me thinks he would have too, which is like feels even worse.
Yeah,
But then Jemima, she taunts him. She's about to skin his bottom half, which is like unnecessary. She chose that, and she's like, "Yeah, the others would have just stabbed you in the neck and be done with it, but you chose me because you thought I was weak. So guess what?" But then when Kathy, the pregnant woman, sends the hook down so that it lodges in her head and kills her, um, she obviously her brain's malfunctioning. There's a hook in it, and she
yeah,
starts talking about her lost cat, and you have to wonder like. Who was she? What was she doing when Jimmy found her and turned her into this,
you know,
or helped her turn into this?
yeah, comparatively innocent.
Hmm.
Uh, she, is a person, but she was like once an empathetic person, once a kid. That this world had turned her into something else, that Jimmy had turned her into something else. And I think that was just her brain functioning, kind of reverting back to that. I say is human, but it's more like, but I don't want to say was human because he themes, but
Hmm.
uh, it's a nice touch.
Yeah. Do you think Kathy, the pregnant woman who, I mean, Spike let her go, and then she, I can understand on the one hand why she's like, no, I'm not taking you with me, Sato kid. But on the other hand, it's like, clearly this kid doesn't want to be there. Do you think we'll see Kathy again in part 3?
A part of me kind of hopes so, just because I think that would be a interesting interaction if they run into,
Right.
Spike and the others that he is with at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
we can spoil now.
okay, with Mr. Killian Murphy,
Hmm.
um, and that might be some interesting character interactions, some interesting drama, and some, I feel like one of the reasons why she didn't take him with him, other than like, he's dressed like a psycho killer, is that he she when she probably sees him, she thinks of, oh, that's like the people I representative of the people I love that are dead now in
Mm,
gruesome, horrible fashion. Which is why I don't necessarily entirely blame her. I mean,
right.
like, like knowing the context, we have the privilege of knowing the context of
Mm-hmm.
Spike. Like he's really not like he does not want to fucking be. Oh, sorry, I
No,
cursed.
no, you can curse. Yeah.
Okay, he does not want to fucking be there, and
Right.
but she doesn't have that knowledge that kind of we do. So I kind of give her at least a little bit of grace, even though since we know the kind of inner workings of the Jimmys, we still kind of feel a little resentment.
Yeah. I mean, I hope we pick up part 3 with Jim, who's Cillian Murphy's character,
Mhm.
immediately asking, "Hey, Kelly, why do you have an upside down cross carved into your forehead?" That's a choice.
uh, it's one of those tattoos I regret. I don't know.
Oh. So speaking of Kelly, I just love the idea of she seems at times like she really is a true believer, maybe not in Jimmy, but in this religious concept of Old Nick. And when she sees Kelson in a temple of bones coated in red, dancing with one of the infected, what is she supposed to think other than Old Nick is real?
uh, I think it's as illogical as it is to us. It is very logical to her.
Right.
You see something and you go, "That's pretty metal." What's happening? There's a guy dancing with a giant zombie, uh, and he's red, and there's a really cool looking pile of skulls in the background.
I mean, yeah, literally metal. We'll get to that.
It is literally metal.
um, I like that this is like just set in this little corner. You know, I was listening back to our 28 years later episode, and I was talking about how I hoped that we would see more communities. And part of me, yeah, hopes that for part 3. You know, obviously,
Yeah,
I want to explore this whole world and see what's going on in other corners of it. But I do appreciate that it is really about this one corner of the world where, of course, sooner or later, if the Jimmies are in this area, they're going to see the Bone Temple because it would be weird if they didn't.
yeah, yeah. I think what the movie was striving to do, it accomplished it as far as just you know focusing on the comparatively smaller stuff and kind of just the characters and their uh the few characters rather than the larger world. I think it benefits from that.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So with these two groups on a collision course, the bromance and the Jimmies, let's take one more quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about how these paths all cross again. Be right back. Okay, so now Sir Jimmy leads the gang to the Bone Temple where he meets Kelson alone. Upon discovering Kelson is not Satan, Sir Jimmy threatens to kill him if he does not pose as Satan and substantiate Sir Jimmy's leadership over the fingers. The next morning, Spike tries to leave Sir Jimmy's camp but is confronted by Jimmy Fox, who attempts to kill him to avenge Jimmy Scheit's death. Ink intervenes and kills Fox. She brings Spike back, claiming to Sir Jimmy that Fox fled out of fear of Satan and she was forced to kill him in self-defense. So yeah, this is what I was teasing. This Sir Jimmy going to meet Kelson. Definitely easily one of my all-time favorite scenes in this film and one of the reasons I give it 5 stars.
Yeah, 'cause it just reveals so much about his character, or at least it embodies so much of his character. Just how much that he is really like he doesn't actually believe what he says. He just
Mhm.
is out for himself and only wants to rule his fingers. and have power over them, so that they as a whole can have power over other people.
Yeah. He did seem scared, or when he first went into the Bone Temple, like he was like, what the hell? What if the stuff I've been saying is true somehow, but I'm not the chosen son?
Yeah, I mean, he's part of him might have been thinking like, combined with that, and also like whatever here must have killed a lot of things.
Right. True.
Um, so it's probably some intimidation there too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it does strike me that there are some similarities. I guess Kelson and Jimmy are in some ways, light and dark mirrors of each other, where because we learn through this conversation that Jimmy really has been, while he's had these fingers around him, he's actually not really had any actual friends. Um, and he says, I like you, you're easy to talk to, and that he's never liked anyone before. But we also hear from Kelson when Spike asks him about the Bone Temple. He's like, in the first movie, he's like, I've been waiting almost 13 years for someone to talk about this, which means he's been alone for that long, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, probably because we saw in the first film, just because everyone was intimidated by what he was doing, because they didn't ask him what he was doing. Instead, they just assumed that he was, you know, uh, a very frightening person that would take their bones and make a skull mountain. Um, but then you get to know him, and it's like, oh, there's actually a very humane and human reason behind this.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Okay. So obviously, there's some things done with the choosing of the names in this entire series for reasons, and one being Jimmy Crystal, JC, Jesus Christ,
Mm.
and it is sort of an indictment of organized religion, I suppose, by him turning it on its head, literally, like the cross he wears around his neck. And we see he leans into this in the first movie. We saw written on a barn in the background, behold Jimmy, he is coming with the clouds, which comes from Revelation 1:7.
Oh.
And people have pointed out the Jimmy Inc. J.I. is like Judas Iscariot, the
Ooh,
yeah.
that's a that's a nice pull.
And then on the other hand, we have Kelson, the atheist, who Jimmy says to him, atheist doctor, okay, so you believe all this zombie shite was caused by science and bugs and whatnot, rather than old Nick unleashing his wrath upon the world of man? Um, yeah, I just, what do you think Jimmy actually believes? Do you think he has any idea what he believes? Because he seems to go back and forth about whether he really believes his father is Satan, which maybe, seeing the last time he saw his father in the opening of the first film, there's a case to be made for thinking his father is Satan.
Yeah.
Um, versus other times he seems to realize it's not true.
I think it's kind of a combination of, it's what he wants to be real, but it's also because one of the reasons why he wants it to be real is because it benefits him.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that those two kind of go hand in hand.
Do you think it comforts him maybe a little too, that, thinking that last time he saw his father, he says he was leading the demons in at the fore. Oh, he always said charity starts at home. And so that's why he, I guess, is offering charity in those words to other people. But
Yeah.
you just have to wonder, like, what was his dad like at home as a dad? Was he a mean dad? He looks like he loved his son, but clearly he had some interesting beliefs.
Uh hard to say. I imagine there might have been some problems at home given his kind of the father's belief system or what
Hmm.
his what his father said at the end. But I don't know if that was always like that for him.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting though that it seems like Kelson's the only person Jimmy's ever been able to be real with since the apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
But still, he's willing to. He's like, I like you, but I'm still going to gut you and force feed you your own intestines until you can't breathe if you don't do what I say.
Yeah, which is a very convincing argument
Yes.
for our doctor.
It seemed to convince Ian Kelson for sure.
Yes.
And meanwhile, Kelly is stirring up shit in the Jimmy Inc. And she's trying to. I mean, she obviously doesn't know at this point that Spike knows Kelson, and she's trying to incite a mutiny. Like she's basically like, I believe that's the devil. I don't believe he's Jimmy's dad.
Yeah. Yeah. For reasons that we're about to get into. The next part's great. That's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, yeah, this interaction with her where she kind of like takes him like a bird under her wing, Spike. I mean,
Yeah.
and there's, I suppose, in the third film we'll learn more about her background because all we hear here is that Spike says, she's like, "Where are you going, Spike?" And he says, "Anywhere is better than here." And she says, "I've been to anywhere. It's not. You need to stick with me, kid." So I need to see what her anywhere is and tell me her heartbreaking story.
Yeah.
Okay, well, before we get to the big showpiece scene, let's check in on Samson on his side odyssey, where Kelson fears that his research on Samson will be cut short and, in a premature attempt to grant him peace, administers him a cocktail of antipsychotics and other drugs, hypothesizing that the rage virus causes aggression indirectly via psychotic hallucinations. Experiencing some clarity, Samson visits the abandoned train where he was infected and hallucinates a childhood memory of a conductor asking for his ticket. After he once again speaks, a nearby pack of infected attack him as if he were uninfected. How did you interpret all of this?
I awesome. It kind of brought the themes from the first film kind of full circle in terms of well, Samson being human, kind of regaining some elements of his humanity and rediscovering himself and proving that, the infected aren't just mindless. They were people and they can be people again. And it brought the themes from the first film whole circle where, kind of having empathy for others, kind of having, seeing the human aspect instead of just dehumanizing zombies or anything else. It was kind of beautiful, and then maybe not necessarily the blood and gore after after might not be as beautiful, but like thematically, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we get some insight into where Kelson thinks that this is. He says in this that he thinks it's psychosis, which some people pointed out as kind of a retcon. But I don't. To me, it makes sense that he says, "Why are the infected attacking sometimes even children?" And we see through Samson's eyes that the infected see the humans as like demons. Basically, they look like demon faces. And then the question is, so what is Samson now? Samson's obviously awake and he can speak some words again now. And now the other infected are attacking him, but he's not. When they get their blood in his mouth and stuff, he doesn't get it reinfected or something. So he's immune and probably a carrier, I suppose.
That probably tracks.
Yeah, I don't know. It's you have to question, where does this leave Samson as sort of a Frankenstein's monster in a way, uh, just forced to be alone because he's dangerous to anyone around him.
Hmm. It is. That's actually kind of tragic, in terms of just he regained his his sense of self, but the only person he could really be with was Dr. Kelson, and that's not really gonna happen in a bit.
Hmm. I wish they told us which antipsychotic drugs. I always like to specifically know the drug, but I suppose it's best that they're just like, just trust us. It's fine. It's fine. It's an
I mean,
antipsychotic and it works. Like, okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. You know, all pills work the same, and there's never side effects, and some definitely don't work for other people compared to definitely work just as well for other people as they do
Yeah.
for others.
Well, that is the question here. Is it only alphas? Because we're told alphas are smarter? Are they the only ones who can be quote unquote cured like this?
Uh, I'd say I'd hope the third movie answers that. That's because it's a good question, and it's kind of one I do want to know the answer to. Um, I want to say yes, just because I think that fits with the themes of the trilogy so far. Uh, but we shall see if we see at all, just depending on what the story is for part three. Given that the story of part two was so different from part one, comparatively speaking.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting in terms of what drugs it is that they are so specific in what the subduing drugs are, that it's morphine and xylazine, which are
Mhm.
what's subduing Samsung. So I wonder, I don't know. Maybe they had a drug and then someone's like, no, it doesn't work like that. They're like, just cut it out, moving on. But I wonder, like, okay, so we know they're out of morphine within a 70-mile radius. Kelson told us that. But I do wonder, will Samson remember how he was treated? And with Kelson, spoiler for the last section or the last two sections we're getting to, with Kelson gone,
Yeah.
will can anyone else be treated? Like, does Samson have any clue what's done to him or any way to figure it out to try to treat anyone else?
Mm. I mean, maybe. I mean, maybe he can take a look at Dr. Kelson's any equipment he still has, maybe,
Mm.
and just know what worked for him. But even then, that's kind of flimsy.
Or maybe Kelson left instructions for him,
Mm,
like, in case you come back,
yeah,
here's how I did it. I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe we'll see. We'll
yeah.
see. It is interesting. Is like, so that whole train sequence. First of all, there's Nia DaCosta is on the train. I didn't know it until the internet pointed it out to me, but she is at one point you can see her sitting on the viewer's left side of the train she's wearing like a baseball cap and you see kind of only half her face, but she's there.
Mm.
Um,
Always love a good cameo,
yeah,
a good
that was
director cameo.
yeah, one that's not really calling attention to itself. It's just there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, good Easter egg.
yeah.
And it is, I like that she was involved in the development process of things that were relevant to her movie, especially the Jimmies and especially Samson. So she collaborated with Danny Boyle in creating this character because she knew, they knew this was going to be a centerpiece of this movie she was directing.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of like Samson kind of makes or breaks this movie,
Yeah.
uh, and he definitely made it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that this childhood memory he has is him looking through a science magazine about an article about the moon, which is the first word he says. So I wonder if he was a space geek when he was a kid.
I imagine. I mean, what kids aren't interested in space, at least a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And then he kind of has a rebirth at the end of this sequence where he emerges from the fight bathed in blood. I wonder if it's sort of like a baptism of blood in a way.
Mm.
All right. And then we get to the big show piece of this, the meeting the devil, where that night Kelson complies with Sir Jimmy's demands, impersonating Satan in a pyrotechnic filled performance of Iron Maiden's The Number of the Beast, while exposing the gang to hallucinogens. Upon recognizing Spike, Kelson betrays Sir Jimmy by ordering the fingers to crucify him. As Ink turns on him, Sir Jimmy fatally stabs Kelson in desperation, and Ink is forced to fight and kill Jimmy Snake and Jimmy Jones. Spike then stabs Sir Jimmy in the side before comforting the dying Kelson as Ink crucifies Sir Jimmy on an inverted cross. Spike and Ink, who reveals her real name to be Kelly, leave for the wilderness. Samson arrives and is taken to be Satan by Sir Jimmy. He greets Kelson by name and thanks him as Kelson succumbs to his wounds, subsequently carrying his body away. Sir Jimmy is attacked by an unseen infected, which, yeah, so we left Sir Jimmy upside down on the cross, which, yeah, satanic fitting. Apparently, I've remember learning in school that that upside down crucifixion was even more painful than regular crucifixion.
Mm.
But I wonder if that last where an infected attacks him from, and we see it from his perspective. I wonder if that was a hallucination. I don't know if I believe that he's dead.
I mean, a part of me thought it might have been a hallucination, but he did die. There's just him seeing him being taken by the devil.
Hmm.
That was kind of how I might have if it wasn't interpreted literally, that's how I kind of interpret it metaphorically.
Okay.
Um, Kind of like it's the it's kind of revealed. He revealed to the others, kind of who he was as a person in terms of, uh, I guess his psychological makeup, his belief, flimsy kind of like belief, but also kind of how self-centered that belief is, and that was kind of him, being punished for it, I guess, like in a religious sense, like, or a theological sense. It made some sense like that to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Um, Now the performance of Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. Let's turn this up to 11, he says. Now you, Riley, are a heavy metal fan, and I know you
Yes.
had some thoughts about this song selection. What do you think? Yeah, why do you think they chose this song, and why do you think it's important to this story?
So the number of the beast, it make like, and Iron Maiden as a whole, like even when they say like satanic, anything that can be construed as satanic, as was kind of the time during the satanic panic in the 80s, which was when the number of the beast came out, which was I think in 82, both the song and the album, because the album is also number of the beast.
Hmm.
uh but for if anyone that has ever watched like an Iron Maiden show, or I've heard, you can tell somewhat of this on the record just by the way the lead singer, Bruce Dickinson, sings. Their whole thing is theater. Like everything they do is, as far as musicians, is this feels like it would sound great on a stage, and it sets a lot of times there's stories, and like other Maiden songs, they sometimes can go on for like 13, 14 minutes or so.
Hmm.
Like they actually feel like actual epics. So it's like any music that Iron Maiden creates is theater, and I think that really made a lot of sense as a song choice for Dr. Kelson to kind of like dance and do a literal performance with. And yeah, I just thought it was a great touch, great choice, and a great song. I'm biased because heavy metal, but um, yeah, it made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, it is indeed. I like what you say about that they are about putting on this show to look more wicked than they are, or whatever, I suppose.
Mhm.
And yeah, Kelson understood the assignment 200%. He. It's interesting that he stopped painting himself red for this with the iodine and instead kind of whited out his skin, but then did the black teeth.
Mm.
Um, and he's the way he's doing the dance, I would have sworn he saw Pan's Labyrinth, but I think that was, I don't know if he could have seen that, but the way he was doing his hands and stuff reminded me of the creature from Pan's Labyrinth.
Mhm.
Um and just so smart, like he's a smart dude, using the fire shakers, and he blows something in their faces, some sort of hallucinogen. He blows in their faces so it all looks even more impressive. And I want to know, first of all, how long did it take to tie those fire sconces to all of those pillars throughout the Bone Temple?
He was ready for a killer show. Um,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, and just seeing it was so much fun also, like obviously Jimmy is we've talked about evil basically. This is what human evil looks like. Yeah, I like how Ian says to Ink after all this as he's dying, like it's just us. There's no devil, and she like something sinks into Kelly Ink, and she says, "Well, you put on a good show," and she drops the wig. She's no longer a believer.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, he gets before Kelson sees Spike. It seems like he was going to go through with it, even though he was, he didn't want Jimmy to stuff his own intestines down his throat, especially since he has his minions. And he was so
Mhm.
convincing. You are the fingers of my right hand. Your dark radiance blackens even sunlight. Pride moves inside me like maggots in the corpse of Christ. Like Jesus, Kelton. Neil, not
he
you, my.
under-
Yeah.
oh god, sorry.
Yeah, Neil, not you, my son, you must stand. And Jimmy looks so happy about that. Yeah, he understood the assignment.
He understood the assignment. That's what I was gonna say.
And he tells them the commands Jimmy told him to tell, continue your infernal mission. And Jimmy's like really pushing it. And he's like making their agony into sacrament. And Kelson's like, yeah, I guess. The fingers must always obey Jimmy. Grow the number of your fingers, which must have all felt so sickening to go along with until
Yeah.
he sees Spike and he says, I saw it was you behind the mask. And I think you've suffered enough.
Mm.
But it's just like couldn't he have thought of that before, regardless of Spike being there? Like, crucify this motherfucker because he's bad news.
Yeah, I think if he was on the fence before, like in terms of like morally on the fence, it would like the morals kind of started to come back in as soon as he said, "Grow the number of fingers,
Mm,
make more people like him, and or make more people like Jimmy
right.
Prime,"
Mhm.
as I might mentally think of him for a bit. Um, and then it just shatters when he's like, "Oh, I know that kid," and
Mhm.
he's as he said, as he eventually says, "I think you've suffered enough."
Yeah. Yeah. And then Jimmy, who has only been thinking of himself, just a complete narcissist,
Yeah.
he's left upside down on the cross, and he starts panicking. He says, I can't hear his voice anymore. So I do wonder if he did maybe have some sort of schizophrenia or something that made him,
Mm,
that contributed to this true believeriness.
mm,
He's really upset. Why can't I hear his voice? I want my mom. Father, why have you forsaken me? And I just went back, and before I rewatched this movie, I rewatched the first one, and I noticed that's the last thing he says when his father, um, lets in all of the infected. He says, Father, why have you forsaken me,
mm.
as a child?
I think that kind of calls back to the Well, when I'm trying to remember which Jimmy got the hook into them.
Right.
Kind of calls back to
Jemima, yeah.
when it calling back to a comparatively more innocent time when they were, not scary murderers who wear ridiculous outfits.
Yeah, and I guess also to what I was saying about Spike, where, in the last movie, he's like, I'm the big boy now. And in this movie, once you're faced with really horrifying things, then you kind of revert more to childhood, where he's like, please just take me with you, lady.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of parallels there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Is Jimmy a parallel? Is Jimmy like a warning to Spike? Is he a parallel to Kelson? It's interesting to think about
Mm,
all these characters and how they, contrast and compare to each other.
absolutely.
All right, that brings us to the final scene, and I think OG fans were definitely much more ready for this final scene than the last movie's final scene for sure. we
Yeah. Yeah.
we get a history lesson. Sometime later, Spike and Kelly are attempting to escape a group of infected, unaware that they are being observed by Jim, a survivor of the initial outbreak of the rage virus, and his teenage daughter Sam, who break off a history lesson about post war Europe to go to their aid. So, first observation is so we have obviously we've been talking about the Jimmies the whole time. Last episode, for the first movie, we were talking about Jamie, which is Spike's dad.
Mhm.
And now we have coming back from the original movie, Jim.
Mm.
Jim, Jimmy, Jamie. Do you think there's a reason why these names sound so alike?
Um, I think yes. And just maybe it's just in terms of just the people, like people I say older, but older than Spike that Spike surrounds himself with in terms of whether it's by family or by, he can't escape from them or
Mm-hmm.
by, people that are either do or are supposed to kind of know better than him in terms of just having more experience in the world. So I think that kind of like a part of me wants to say father figure, but that's not
Hmm.
entirely true. But
Yeah.
because I mean I wouldn't call Jimmy a
Jimmy.
father figure,
I mean, he's
but
the worst, though. He's like the
yeah,
contrast that makes his own father look better.
yeah. I mean maybe like an authority figure
Mm-hmm.
combined with some sort of parental kind of lead, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I think that could, and those three characters could all represent that in some way. I think that could be the intention if there was intention.
Yeah. It's interesting that Ian Kelson falls outside that. Um, but yeah,
Mm,
you have to wonder
that is true.
if Alex Garland is, trying to make us think of these Jim, Jimmy, Jamie as different versions of each other, maybe in the role they play with. Because I suppose Spike was never really with Kelson for more than,
Mhm.
a day or two at a time.
Yeah.
It was never his primary group leader, like
Mhm.
Jamie, then Jimmy, and now Jim are.
No.
I
I, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna concur.
Um, I guess we should be worried about that there's no Selena or Hannah from the original movie with Jim and his daughter. I mean, I assume Selena is Jim's daughter's mother,
Mm,
but
yeah.
I do we think they're dead?
Mm, part of me hopes no, but there's a possibility that yes. Maybe not a good but there's in that world, there's always a possibility that something bad happened. Um, so I'll be interested to find out.
It's and regardless, it seems to have decanonized. I talked about in the episode for the last movie, the comics, and how that turned out, where Hannah was actually sent to Germany for foster care. And Selena ended up, she thought that Jim was dead, and she ended up meeting someone else and going to the US. I think none of that has happened now, like that the comics are officially decanonized, as often happens.
Yeah. I imagine, yes, that they don't want to be, the filmmakers probably don't want to be ever restricted by, something that happened outside of their medium.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. It is interesting that Selena, the name means moon, which is what Samson's first re-word was. First rehumaning.
I always just think of Land Fear.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah. Wheel of Time reference. Can't get through an
Yeah,
episode without it, for sure.
correct.
The internet also pointed out that Frank's taxi from the original movie, Hannah's dad, it's still there. It's all rusted and stuff, but Jim still has it.
Mm.
It is interesting where I have to take note of the fact that they actually let us listen in for a while on Jim's history lesson with his daughter, which means they want us to take something away from this thematically. And this is a very important lesson in world history close to my heart, where he's teaching his daughter how the punitive measures of World War One led to World War Two. Like basically, Germany was over punished after World War One, and that ended up directly leading to re-expansionist idea of like, we don't deserve this.
Yeah, and not just bad, but becoming worse.
Right. Whereas after World War II, there was more emphasis on helping Germany and Japan to rebuild, and that by helping those who were your enemies, this is again, it's like the lion and the paw thing. You help those who were the aggressor to rehabilitate, and it creates more stability and prosperity for the whole world. And he quotes Churchill, "Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it," which it feels very important at the moment.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. So I appreciated that this lesson is being drilled home twice. And I think this is going to have to do with this radical forgiveness, that a radical atonement or whatever they said about the third movie's theme being. But then, yeah, and of course this comes down to where Jim, we see him when his daughter asks, we see the two running with the infected behind them, and Jim's probably like, ugh, I just wanted a chill day with my daughter. And she asks, do we help them? And I think he noticeably pauses before he says, of course we do. Like it took him a beat to get there. And he's like, oh, yeah, of course we do. Part of him wanted to say no.
I mean, I think that's kind of relatable when put into a, tough circumstance. Or like for me, it's like whenever someone like introduces something new that we have to do immediately, I go, like, a part of me is like, I'm going to drag my feet. And then I do, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Just an less stakes than saving someone's life, but
right.
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably good at taking down zombies by now, but yeah.
True.
And then, of course, as this happens, we hear dun, 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 the original "The House in a Heartbeat" score from John Murphy from 28 Days Later creeps in over the credits, which is just a perfect way to cap it all off. So we know in part 3, Cillian Murphy is going to be one of the stars. Who else do you hope will come back? Like from any of the movies so far?
I'm guessing Spike's dad, Jamie, will be back in some capacity. I'm trying to think of what the other one would be, though.
I mean, I would love if we did get Selena and or Hannah, obviously. But
yeah.
I'm not holding my breath for it.
Yeah.
I doubt we're going to get anyone from. I think they're just like, forget the second movie happened weeks. So I'm
Yeah.
doubting. Although Imogen Poots said she would come back, and I say, why not? But yeah, I guess most of all, I want to pick back up with like what's going on with with Jamie and the island people.
Mm. Yeah. I imagine Jamie's still freaking out about how his son is missing and that there's a baby
Yeah.
after part one.
Now I noticed on Wikipedia, so I don't this doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I noticed that the actor who played Sam in the last movie, the older man who told Spike that Kelson was a doctor,
Mm.
he's listed as coming back in the third movie. So I guess I would assume that. I just assume that yeah, we have to close the loop
Yeah.
and talk about this town, this community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hmm. We have two pieces of feedback. So we have from Ken W. Hello, just out of the cinema. Absolutely love this movie. I'll start by reminding everyone it's not a zombie virus, it's a rage virus. So shown by Samson's view of what they see that brings out the rage in them. The Iron Maiden scene was quality, reminding me of the Rocky Road to Dublin scene in Sinners. Brilliant how it wrapped up the Jimmy's storyline and continued Spike's. The surprise ending, it was a surprise for me, was great. The only gripe I have is Jack O'Connell's Scottish accent. It was all over the place. Otherwise, 8 out of 10 for me. Can't wait for the next installment in your chat about it. And so I asked, so Ken W is from Dublin himself. So I asked, how was O'Connell's Irish accent in Sinners? And he said it was good. His father's from County Kerry. So he would be used to that type of accent, and he loves a bit of Irish dancing. So for the record, the Irishman says Jack O'Connell's Irish accent good, Scottish accent bad. And then the other piece of feedback we got was from Dopamini, who says, I was shocked how brutal the Jimmies were immediately and relentlessly, with the ending of the prior film being sort of goofy, even though the brutality was hinted at repeatedly. I expected some degree of levity, and it didn't give us any, just fear and violence and trauma. I'm going to pause there because I don't know. Do you think there was any levity in this film?
I think the levity, came through differently in this film than in the other film, or in part one.
Mm-hmm.
Because with part one, you kind of got uh, the soldier guy,
Right.
and
The
it's just,
doctor.
and like yeah, and it's like you just kind of can't help but laughing at like Spike's reaction to like the idea of what the outside world does, or
Mm-hmm.
like and that part, so it's like more presently funny. I think like while like the scene itself was very like overall was serious, like the Iron Maiden, performance, I kind of laughed quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not laughed, but I was amused just
Right.
because you can see how Kelson is, Ray Fine, playing Kelson, who's playing the devil and hamming it up
Hmm.
as the devil, and it's kind of fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I thought that it's the same that I feel about a lot of things about comparing to the first 28 years to this one. Is that I feel like the first one had more emotional depth, more like the funnier moments hit harder, but then
Yeah,
this one was more consistent throughout.
yeah.
So I did laugh at this one throughout, but I acknowledge that it's a dark sort of humor, and maybe that says something about me.
Mm.
Dopamini says, I also thought there would be some scenes showing their training regiment because they ended that last film as complete badasses with their parkour martial art crazy style, but they didn't seem tough in this film at all. Makes me wonder if we're seeing it all through Spike's perspective. When they jump down to help at the end of 28 years, they must look like some kind of superheroes to Spike. But when we catch back up with him, he's been around them long enough to see that they are both terrified and terrifying. Maybe this accounts for the difference. Yeah, and so I responded to that I agree about their brutality, but I did think, I used that Jemima example as she didn't appear tough, but then when it came down to it, she was absolutely brutal. But I like what Dopamini said here about them being both terrified and terrifying.
Yeah. Kind of
Yeah.
encapsulates kind of the power dynamic.
Yeah. And Dopamini concludes, I fully agree that they are tough. Your example is spot on. Another way to say this maybe is that there was almost a band of pranksters vibe when we first saw them, and they went berserker on those zombies. It was over the top, and the tone of the scene was crazy. So I expected to see some of how they got those skills, more than having to fight each other to the death, and some bit of the weird dystopian whimsy of that final scene. But instead, even though every one of those kids is tough, they are also way more traumatized and terrified of Jimmy Prime, not of zombies, than I expected. Does that make sense? And yeah, I think I think that what she said, what Katie said, Dopamini said about seeing through Spike's perspective, where yeah, it must have seemed so miraculous and out of nowhere until he gets to know them, and indeed you see. I guess that's the case with a lot of terrifying figures. Is when you see them more closely, more intimately, you see that they are also terrified, and that's why they behave this way.
Mm. I think that line of thinking has a lot of sense.
But they are also pretty badass when they move through the countryside, and just like the fact that they were just camping in the woods and they're like, yeah, if any infected show up, we'll just kill them. That's just what we do. We just
Yeah.
kill all the infected. We're so sick of it. They're just there. It's like swatting flies to them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I imagine kind of killing an infected has kind of more rules than, uh, compared to other people. But even then, like, they're not afraid of hurting other people, clearly. Um, yeah, I lost my thought. That's ADHD for you.
Would you have any final thoughts about the film overall?
Great movie. I hope the third one still happens, and I hope this movie, once it comes out on Netflix today, as of when this episode comes out, that more people will give it a watch.
Yeah, go watch it again, or at least fast forward to the Iron Maiden scene. um, Yeah, so I will say goodbye to you here then, but listeners, do stick around to find out what else is going on in the network after this. But Riley, talk again about what do you have coming up on your channel, Biological Riley, which you can find linked in the show notes.
So I am going to have my long overdue review of Wednesday season 2 out. Uh, so that should be out by the time this podcast release.
Okay, cool.
And I'm currently working on some Project Hail Mary kind of thing because I read the book for the first time. I want to say I finished it like a week ago. So I kind of have some, fresh thoughts of the movie and some
Hmm.
video ideas for that.
Yeah, and you were saying on the Discord you were a fan.
Oh yeah, it's a great movie. It's
I
probably one of
well
my.
of the book too. I mean, yeah,
Oh, of the book, yeah.
yeah.
I both are great.
I mean, to be honest, I have yet to hear anyone say anything negative about either. So,
Yeah,
all right. Well, thank you so much for joining again. And let's hope for part 3 news soon.
absolutely.
Thank you again to Riley. And yeah, Jean, we missed you, but you'll be able to hear Jean popping up on other coverage. I know they're planning a wrap up for the Paradise season. And Luke, and I are going to be doing periodic check ins on the new season of Daredevil, which is running right now. So stay tuned for that. And also for the conclusion of the One Piece Season 2 coverage with John and I, followed later by some Project Hail Mary coverage, and of course, John and David's weekly The Pit coverage. Subscribers, as always, you have ad-free access to all of this, plus extra episodes. Our special subscriber bonuses for March were Mean Girls for March of the Millennials and the Warehouse Wars before that. And for April, it's Finger Foods and the Rob Reiner Requiem. The poll will be launched very soon. Check out also the recent What You Watchin' episodes, like another mini check-in on the pit and a double feature for The Bride and Wuthering Heights. And not to forget, as ever, our affiliates. Do check out Properly Howard's. They're in the middle of their new season. Radioactive Ramblings is starting coverage of the new Invincible season. And Nevermind the Music, where music meets psychology. Which brings us to our final thank yous. First of all, thank you to all of you listeners for sticking around and hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this, please share it with anyone else you think will enjoy it as well. We especially have to thank our Discord server boosters, Aaron K., Tiller the Thriller, Duve71, Athena Ajalea, Lestu, Nancy M., Ghost of Partition, Radioactive Richard, and Adrian. And we have to thank all of our subscribers who make it possible for us to keep doing this and hopefully expand in the future. Thank you most of all to our highest tier, the Lore Master, Samartian, Michael G, Michelle E, SC, Peter OH, Nancy M, Duve71, Brian 8063, Frederick H, Sarah L, Gareth C, Andra B, Kwang Yu, Nathan T, Sub-Zero, Aaron K, Dally V, Mothership 61, Gnarls, Kathy W, Lestu, Jeffrey B, Elisa U, Ben B, Scott F, Stephen N, Julia F, Collie S, Ilmariel, Paul K, Rocky Zim, Jessica A, Red Zippy, the TCS, Dopamini, Catch It, LNR, Mrs. Tennant, AC Wilson, Eli W, Cassie K, Chumbaroonie, Katia, Josh Lou, Paintin' PDX, Corey G, Quinch, and always last Adrian. Thank you all, and may you all have the courage to befriend someone like Samson and scare the shit out of the Satanists. Bye!
Woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil sends the beast with wrath, because he knows the time is short. Let him who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast, for it is a human number. Its number is 666.
The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by The Lorehounds. You can send questions and feedback and voicemails at thelorehounds.com/contact. Get early and ad-free access to all Lorehounds podcasts at patreon.com/thelorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employers or other entities. Thanks for listening.